Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Boulanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage. All right, thank you for joining us here on Engaging Personalities. I'm excited to introduce our guest here today. His name is Alex Shevelenko. He is the founder and CEO of Reylayto. We're going to find out a little bit more about that. And he's also an interactive storyteller. So, Alex, welcome to the show.
Great. Excited to be here, Anders.
When we were just talking before we were recording, like just now, that I feel like what you have with Reylayto is such a great fit and what I kind of want to highlight with the podcast and, talking to people who are creating engagement, especially, customer facing engagement, right? And connecting companies so that they can sell more and increase revenue and all of that. Cause that's just kind of where my heart is too. So can you just maybe give us just a high level view? What is Reylayto? Can you tell people what we're talking about?
You bet, Anders. So what you're doing was storytelling that's, at events. We trying to do was digital storytelling. So when you think of B2B communicators, they often rely on a leave behind of some sort after the event or after the sales pitch. And so that could be a PowerPoint converted in a PDF, or it could be an ebook that's a PDF kind of asset that allows people to dig into your story. And what we do is we take that static asset that's, in a familiar format, but is not particularly exciting, and we turn it into something that feels a lot more like a conversation. But you're having that conversation while consuming your leave behind presentation or your ebook or white paper. So that's what we do. We take a software, move your PDFs, PowerPoints into that, and comes out an interactive website that tells your story when you're not in the room.
Okay, gotcha. Because, I'm guilty myself that, I will present my proposal, as a presentation or a PowerPoint presentation, but then I always just attach that PDF. And I always feel like you're kind of like, I don't know, this poor PDF, you should just like, it has to stand on its own. And yet it's, I guess I want to say it's two-dimensional and not, really interactive. So what PDFs haven't really evolved much, have they?
Yeah, that's sort of it's a great starting point, and it's a great asset for printing stuff, right? Like, so we actually like the PDF. It's the lingua franca if you want to feel like you have a document, something that's legally binding or something that you could, read on, if you print, great. The problem is most people don't want to print anything these days, and they consume these things in a screen. And that's where you kind of come up with this flat thing. So it doesn't have animations. You can't really embed videos in there. You don't have ability to jump around and get to the parts that you care about. And you can't really drill in without losing, leaving the PDF into something else. And so that's sort of where you marry the best of the document, something that we all know and feel comfortable with really advanced websites, right? That allow you to navigate to the parts that you care about and, get the job done and become kind of a resource for you. So that's the marriage. And if you think about it in a conversation, it's sort of when you ask somebody a question, right? You're drilling in, right? And so imagine your document or your presentation could allow to provide more details, even when you're not in the room. And then if you're a sender of this, you could actually capture the digital body language of your audience. So not only making your conversation. Yeah, well, it's sort of, you're asking a question right now, right? Like you're like, I could see, oh, really, this is interesting. Let me click on this case study, or let me dive into what's underneath this particular nugget of, what's the data behind it? So we can capture that.
So when you say that, Alex, are you saying that the is it digital body language in terms of, I don't know, like clicks and kind of intent on looking at let's call it the document? or in hover time, or what kind of body language are you kind of drilling into there?
Yeah, exactly. So imagine, you not only see where people that get to page 5 and spend 15 seconds on page 5, but because page 5 has 5 of your case studies that have a hot spot or have a clickable immersive experience inside them, you can actually drill in and see, oh, well, person clicked into the Microsoft case study on page 5, and so they're really interested in that. We know what they, if we're coming into a meeting or if we're following up, we know where their heart is at, right? Or if we know, hey, they haven't clicked on anything at all and they haven't really engaged and they asked us to do a ton of work, maybe they're not really intent to buy at all and they're just using us as a competitive wedge and we're wasting our resources. So it goes from, hey, this is what I'm interested in, to sometimes figuring out, hey, where do we allocate our time because this content is not working or this user is not really.
Well, and I think people too can then A/B test, the collateral, right?
Okay.
What is the best of the best in terms of putting things in front of customers? Because you probably see some trends over time of what makes people engage with it. Was that true?
It's sort of exactly right. It's sort of, if you think about it, we as a society got very savvy at A/B testing crappy content that sort of is the spam emails. Like, we really are very good at the lightweight stuff. And then when it comes to substantive things, right? It could be a book, it could be a proposal, it could be your life's work. We get very little feedback and insight into whether it's actually getting the engagement and the follow through, actually, right? The behavioral change that you're looking for. So we're just providing that extra lens on the content that really matters, right? The big ideas, the more complex materials.
Yeah. Well, things like proposals that, and who knows what kind of, dollars are riding on that PDF, let's say, right? Like, it could be a huge enterprise sale and you got this little dinky little PDF that's trying to, make it memorable, right? How do you make it memorable? How do you stand out from the competition?
I think it's exactly right. It's sort of a mix of, just like you're doing in meetings, right? It's sort of, how do you stand out? First of all, and just grab the attention. How do you actually move people on some sort of a journey, right? And ideally, it's their journey. It's not you forcing, information down their throat in a order that is, relevant to you. It's, they become part of the adventure, and so it becomes kind of a co-creation, right? It's a co-created experience where the two of you, whether you're actually allowing people to jump to even if it's in a live meeting, people could just say, well, let's go to this section, right? And you could immediately have your clients drive the presentation, or you could co-drive it together. And it just feels like it's a much more meaningful, more human way to, right? Especially around topics, right?
I love the co-creating when you're not even present. Like, that's almost kind of a mind blower, just that they are having the experience that they choose or need to have. And you've been able to, facilitate that, right? I
imagine it's like you're cloning your best sales rep, right? Or yourself, in your case, probably you're the best sales rep in your company, right? Like, and you're able to put yourself in a box and kind of walk through the various scenarios where a client could take either specific proposal or generic educational content, right? And this could be PDFs, it could be videos, it could be a number of areas where you would package the complex content in a way that is more consumable.
Yeah. And I think we were talking about this just earlier, where you talked about, they're consuming it on a screen. As soon as it's on a screen, and we learned this in virtual, right? There's a lot of distractions. I think I saw something on your website or maybe on your LinkedIn talking about digital noise. Is that kind of what do you mean by digital noise?
Well, I think the problem, like you said, was a screen is, if you're, for example, live presenting, right? And you're just showing static slides. Well, what happens, right? You're not drawing attention to the most important message on your slide. So one of the ways to kind of overcome the surround sound of all the media coming at us is actually to have some movement on the screen that draws your attention to the right areas, right? And so great presenters do that, but again, flat PDF doesn't allow you to do that anymore, right? You could do it maybe some of those visual, really, well-defined visual bits, but animation is really important. Our crocodile brains are designed to pay attentions that are moving, have high contrast. This is kind of how we survived in the prairie. And so it's sort of, then there's the curiosity that piques. That's natural, it's not forced. And so you just have been playing in this black and white kind of Truman world of versus you're going into a really engaging visual multidimensional experience where the content jumps out, and particularly the important content, the stuff that you can drill in. So you can kind of highlight and draw the attention to the things that really matter. And one of the other ways in which you're bypassing the noise is let's say you click on a link to a YouTube, and you leave your presentation, you leave your PDF, and you go onto YouTube. Well, you just failed massively, right?
They're gone, right?
You're gone. You're watching cats, dogs, whatever is latest Madonna video. You're distracted, and so then you have 15 tabs on your screen, and what are the odds of you finding the tab where the proposal was, or file was the PDF, which is like God knows some sort of Adobe file somewhere. And so you're out of that mode, and the mental switching is very hard. So we work incredibly hard to create an immersive environment where if you leave, it better be for a very good reason, like a performer really call to action, and you're done. But otherwise, you're staying inside the immersive digital experience to help you focus and get something done, learn something, change your behavior, get across the entire content.
And within that confines of what you have there, then all the measurement can take place too, right? If we had them going off,
exactly, they go off.
It's no good.
Yeah, imagine the immersive YouTube that happens inside your experience. You're capturing that engagement data still.
Yeah.
Once you leave, you're paying Google gods.
Yeah. So when you just started talking about how what do you call them? What do you call the Reylayto documents?
We started was a document experience, and I think we really interestingly moved beyond, because customers started pulling us. Well, I have 50 videos, and how do I integrate them in a way that's engaging? So we're just calling it content experience right now.
Content experience.
Moving beyond, but the core I would still starts with some sort of complex document, but it's expanding. We can add videos in there, Airtables, images. It doesn't have to be a document anymore.
Right. So when you're talking about your content experiences, so many of the things that we're teaching people, how to be more engaging, you talked about it. You nailed it right on the head, is the crocodile mind. Like, what do we notice? What gets noticed? And movement, just like an animal looking for food it wants to eat, right? It's gonna capture our attention. So you've obviously studied a bit of brain science and applied some of those principles into the content experience. For the people who are listening right now, what are some of the insights that you've gained from also studying how people consume that experience? What are some things that you could share our listeners that would help them get more eyeballs on what they're trying to showcase?
You bet. So to your point, Anders, we've combined behavioral science, which is kind of a social science disciplines from psychology, economics. We've used neuroscience tactics and techniques, and so we can merge it and then actually measure it what works. So some of the few things that we recommend to our users is add a video in the very first few pages. So typically a cover image video is something that our power users add, and that immediately creates a sense of excitement, difference, that this is not your granddaddy's PDF or grandma's PDF. And sometimes those videos align with the brand. Sometimes it's just a sense of awe of something that's just moving, and it has a sort of just kind of captivating excitement for people. They like it. They don't know why, but it just creates a positive impression. So video is number one. Number two, we measure different type of engagements, like you said, hovers and clicks. And one of the engagement types is navigation clicks. So when you build out a navigation that wasn't, for example, in the original document, but it's persistent, we actually see that people click on it in a massive way. The longer the document, the more important is the navigation. To really think through, because that sort of says, hey, we're not going to force this in a linear, boring monologue page by page. We're going to use the fact that it's a digital document. We're going to create a killer navigation through Reylayto, through even, introductory chapters that almost ask you questions like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to explore? And have that be a way to get through the content. And then the other very basic thing is, a lot of authors forget what's the purpose. What's the purpose of the content? What's the one thing that the user needs to do, from consuming the content? Oftentimes for proposal or for a pitch, it may be book the next meeting, right? Maybe that's your main persistent call to action. So make sure you don't forget and don't create this thank you page at the end without anything that you're supposed to do on that page, because that's just a huge missed opportunity. So persistent call to action that reminds people, oh, at the end of this, I need to go book this or do this or do that. So those are kind of 3 bits
that's
that
great.
Anybody can take away. You could try and do them without Reylayto as well. But I think that in general, we are obsessing with how to make it very easy for you to engage your audience, to let them find value in the right content, and do the one thing that they need to do at the end of your experience. That without effort.
Now, you talked about making it easy. Now, like as we're talking, I'm starting to kind of go like, maybe I might need this. I think I'm about engagement, and my PDFs, the poor PDFs, they're just so lame by themselves. How easy is it to, let's say, take a PowerPoint or to take if especially, I don't know, salespeople are notoriously lazy. Let's just say that, right? How much effort is it to create these? And I guess maybe part of it is creating that first template is work, and then after that it becomes easy. Or can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think we've learned that we really have 2 personas that take advantage of a platform like Reylayto. One is the salesperson, the busy entrepreneur that has a PDF and just wants to get it out there and start capturing analytics and stand out a little bit. And for them, it's literally you just the way you would attach the PDF to an email. You would just upload it in Reylayto. Immediately, your branding would appear. You could, if you have the right template, the navigation would get extracted automatically, and you're ready to go, right? You could send it. If the more links you have inside the PDF, we'll extract those in a smart way. So, for example, if you had a YouTube link inside the PDF in Reylayto, that YouTube link will appear immersively. So you really don't have to do anything. You just upload it and you're done. Then there are marketers and designers, and those guys could literally create award-winning, interactive websites, learning experiences, the way you would build a fancy website, but you could do it in a fraction of a time, but it still is elaborate, right? Because you're going to work out on some, interaction design capabilities. So you would need to be a PowerPoint user or use Adobe tools like InDesign to build something really advanced. So then the 2 merge through the templates, right? Like, so that if the marketers and designers come out with great templates, then it's much easier for the sales team to just create a wow experience in a few clicks. But generally, that's sort of the extreme, right? Like a website alternative in a fraction of a time, or you've got, a much smarter version of that presentation, much smarter version of the PDF without any hassle. And that we find that what's interesting is that then a sales team starts using some assets that marketing creates that are kind of wow, and then they do their own standard experiences that are really straightforward, and the combination of that is still very wow compared to sending out a bunch of one-off PDFs over time.
Right. Now, what is the I guess the experience for I guess the part that I'm not quite understanding, and in case anyone's listening, maybe they're thinking this question too. Do you still attach this as a PDF and they think it's a PDF until they get into it? Or is it a link that's just in the email and they click on the link and then it takes them to a web page that is the content experience?
That's a great question. So I think the easiest way is to show it, but it is fundamentally it's a link. And we have recently built a new feature that allows you to take that link and actually it looks like it's a beautiful, clickable, interactive experience. So your email could automatically generate something that feels like it's a presentation or a flip book or an ebook.
Gotcha.
And so you really make it very clear that it's worth clicking on in your email. So that allows you to almost make your email interactive as well. So if you think about it, like big part of the challenge was the PDF is actually getting people to care about opening the PDF in the first place. And so we give you the tools to make your thing look so exciting that people would want to click on it. You don't want to have 15 of those, right? Like, because then your email will be too much, but it's you could draw attention to it. But in general, it's a link or it's an embed on a website. So it's a very smart URL. You can even embed Reylayto the same way you would embed a YouTube video. So it could be, just embed on your landing page or a website.
So now if you're trying to get people to click a link, the question that comes up for me is just because we deal with a lot of technology companies is, PDF has this kind of, it's a PDF, it's attached. It seems to have a little bit more, I'm going to say security to it as opposed to clicking a link. Is there any sort of, pushback or anything from companies, about, having that as a link in an email?
Not really. No, I think quite the opposite. So for majority of high volume, like the complex PDFs, they could be sizable. And so more often than not, they get blocked in the company email boxes. We happen to have been working from day one with organizations like Accenture and being sent out to their partners. So we've been whitelisted across most secure enterprise email domains. So I think for us, it's quite the opposite. It tends to be an attractive way to bypass the, getting blocked because the email file is too large. But one thing that I will tell you that's, really important to remember is you still have your PDF was something like Reylayto. So if a client does want the PDF, you're not giving up the chance, right? Like, so one of the things that what we're doing that's really interesting is we're competing with tools that are saying, throw away your PDF. Throw away your PowerPoint. Learn to code and design really complex stuff with us, but it's still pretty easy relatively to old school custom website. But like, that's the competitive set. And so in that world, that is a risk, right? Because you don't have this PDF where you have to work just as hard to create the PDF. So here with Reylayto, what you're doing is fundamentally you have the safety play. If somebody wants to print it, get the downloadable version, you could still send that attachment. But oftentimes you say, hey, here's the PDF, but here's an interactive experience that you could engage with right now. And the users, oftentimes even you could add a link to the interactive experience in your PDF. And then people go, oh, great, there is the There's that live and living and breathing and always up-to-date version of that. And everybody likes that because, as you know, like probably the number one tragedy is the moment you send your PDF is when you discover, oh, I have a typo on page 24 and glaring accidental error on page 5. And, I don't want to send that to the senior decision makers, oh, ignore that, please, right? Like, so this is part of the magic is you still have your PDF. It could be very prominent that you could download from a Reylayto. You could download the PDF document.
Yeah. So Alex, what inspired you to create Reylayto? Because, were you frustrated with your own experience or tell us about that?
Yeah. I happen to be very fortunate to worked at exciting B2B marketing companies like Salesforce and SuccessFactors, which is not part of SAP. And I felt there was a major disconnect between us creating this, collateral, explaining what we do that looked pretty old-fashioned and selling at the time innovative SaaS applications. So I just felt like, hey, if you're selling better employee experience or better customer experience, you got to be congruent with delivering that, right? If you these days, if you're selling digital transformation on a piece of paper, you kind of
It's a
whatever
disconnect.
your piece
Yeah.
of paper is not worth what is the ink that it's written on, right? Like there's incongruities. So that was the motivation for me. But in general, it just felt like, hey, look, there's a lot of noise out there. Like all of us are getting distracted with things that don't help us learn, don't help us advance, don't help our customers tackle tough problems. They easily get distracted with Facebook and YouTube and this. So what if we merge the best of consumer media, to help us tackle the meaty, complex B2B problems, right? That require some sort of emotional motivation to kind of tackle the hard things. And that's sort of what we are excited about. We were for people that are not afraid of tackling meaty, complex problems and navigating through that. And there is no good alternatives for long form, engaging content. There's a lot of short form. So that's just the gap that I felt was there. And it felt like the more important, the more sophisticated, the more complex the idea, the worse it's being communicated these days. So that felt like, our civilization is getting stuck because our mediums are not catching up was the biggest problems of our times.
Yeah, well, amen to that, like what you did, because the idea that we are getting distracted by all the, social media and everything that's happening there. And that's what I've been telling people too, is we need to kind of engagify, our business interactions so that people will consume them. And that's exactly and precisely what you've done with your content experiences. Alex, it's been so great having you on, sharing, your company with us and your solution. If people wanted to learn more about you, learn more about your company Reylayto, where should we send them?
My email, alex@reylayto.com. Happy to either answer the questions myself or connect them to the right folks on my team, Reylayto.com. And we're pretty active on LinkedIn, so you could look me up on LinkedIn, and happy to engage and share what other folks are doing in our ecosystem about making big ideas more engaging and digestible.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this today. And for all you listeners, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, Engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and stay engaged.